approve the minutes of the January 19th tourism and occupancy tax coordination meetings. Somebody will make a motion by Supervisor Hogan. Do we have a second? Supervisor Beatty, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I gotcha. Okay. First item of business is resolution request to authorize agreement with Benchmark Printing Incorporated to print the 2021 Lake George area travel guide. Rationale, the project awarded to lowest responsible bidder. The bid amount is $13,357, and that's for 80,000 copies, which is a reduction from the past copy number. Any questions? Motion to approve this. Yes, Doug.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by John. Is that a second by you, Doug?
Yeah, and I had a question too, Kevin.
Go ahead, Doug.
Joanne, did we have any left over last year? I mean, we're not throwing any out, are we, or is it or not being used, or?
There's just a handful of boxes left, Doug, and requests are still coming in, so we're sending those out. And we tuck a little note inside that says, this is our 2020 travel guide, and some of the things that you see in here, events and attractions, may not be open, but use this for your planning. And then when we have the new guide, which we expect to be mid-April, we'll send the new guide to these same individuals, but just a handful left.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anybody? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is a resolution request authorizing continuation of the intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Lake George for the Lake George Visitor Center. Every year we contributed $25,000 to the Village of Lake George for the Visitor Center. Somebody want to make a motion to get this on the floor? Motion by Andrea, second by Supervisor Beatty. Discussion. And you know, all the towns have a panel in the visitor center there in Lake George, and it's a very popular place. So no discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Joanne would like to make a presentation. I believe you all have the PowerPoint in your agenda packet. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Joanne. Joanne, you want to start with a 2020 and 2021 outlook, please?
Thank you.
Yep.
Tammy will show the slides on the screen.
Okay.
As well. Thank you, Tourism Committee and new supervisors on my committee. I know you most all of you very well, and I welcome you to the office anytime if you have any questions. A quick review of where we've been and where we're headed. So we usually take a look at the Smith Trend reports, and I'll keep this pretty high level. I compared demand in 2019 and 2020. Our goal was not to exceed a 50% decline. For the entire year, we were only down 28.7%. And actually, the months of August, September, and October were very good. August was only down 17%, September 10%, and October 12%. So the summer months were relatively strong. The ADR, which is the average daily rate, was up slightly again in those same months, August, September, and October. So people were coming and they were willing to spend a few extra dollars to visit us this summer. The short-term rentals, which we know Mike Swan will begin to collect tax on, numbers to pay attention to. If you take a look at 2000, I'm so sorry, the slide that's on the screen is 2018, 2019, and that is incorrect. I should have 2019 and 2020, and I apologize for that. But the end result is we were up 33,000 rooms rented for the short-term rentals. So a considerable number to be aware of.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Weil. Mike?
Go ahead, Joanne.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Weil.
Go ahead.
Mike Wild, maybe on mute. He's asked to speak.
I thought this worked this way. It doesn't work this way. No, it doesn't. Yes, pardon me. Looking at the slide you had on the screen, can you go back one?
Are these the wrong slides, Joanne?
They are. I just see that now, and I'm sorry. I must have sent the wrong slide deck up to Tammy, but this, if you have the PowerPoint printout that I sent to everyone
Yes.
on Friday, those are the correct slides.
Right. Mike, it's awful hard to hear you. Are you trying to speak to us?
Oh, get talking to the mic. Take the mask off.
I can't hear a word he's saying.
I'm sorry, does that work, Kevin?
Now it works.
No, it's hard to hear you, Mike. You're on mute, according to, I don't know. Go ahead and
I'm
speak.
trying to do it from the boardroom. I'm going to put my microphone far away from me and see if I can do it the other way.
Is that any better? That's probably worse.
It is worse, Mike. Go ahead. You're getting choppy. You have a question?
I did, and hopefully you can hear me, but I'm looking at the slide on the screen versus the slide on the paper. And it says
They're different.
Sold, can you hear me? 92,900 for 2019, where the slide that was presented to us says it's 66,600. And I'm curious how 19 changed from the slide on the screen versus the slide that was presented.
I think she explained that the slides that she has on the screen are not the correct ones.
So we didn't have a demand in 2019 of 92,900?
I got to respond. Let Joanne respond to that.
Mike, aside from the screen being incorrect, there was an issue with the vendor this summer, and they did change their numbers midstream and said that there was a problem with their calculations. And I went back to them and told them that that was unacceptable. We do plan to switch vendors this coming year. So when I put those numbers on the screen a year ago to present those are honestly the numbers that I thought were correct at the time. Those numbers have since changed. The numbers that they've provided to me currently are on the printout that you have. So I do believe that the numbers in front of you are correct, but I will note that I am changing vendors this year. And when I get the new numbers from the new vendor, I will check back to the previous year and report back.
So timing on that, will we get it before next month?
I need to pay the bill first, but yes, we should have that by next month.
Thank you.
So is it worth going through this PowerPoint if the numbers are not correct?
No, not the PowerPoint that Tammy has, but
Okay, go ahead. You can just verbalize.
okay. I would next move to website analytics, and the numbers have been increasing year over year. In 2020, the numbers are very much the same. The number of visits, 1,883,000. I would note that I would be happy with that in a year where we spend about 50% less on our promotions, that the visits to the website were very much the same. The number one page that was visited last year was the What's Open page, and we did update that regularly, and we had over 300,000 visits to that page. The next screen is a social media update. Just quickly, our Instagram and Facebook profiles. Instagram at 30,000 followers is largely a millennial audience and largely female. Facebook followers are split between the millennial and the baby boomer audience at 330,000. That's our largest platform, and we have most engagement there. And that's important in a year like we've just had, and certainly moving forward, because even if we're not spending promotional dollars, paid media, we are always engaged on social media. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, every day, all day, Casey is posting and commenting and engaging with our followers. So it's a very important platform for us.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, another question?
Go ahead.
Julian, if you don't mind, I see 330 followers on Facebook. How does that compare with other regions that we compete with? Let's say Hershey, Pennsylvania, some of the Finger Lakes. How do we compare with those regions?
I don't know off the top of my head those regions, Mike. I will certainly look into that.
So I guess I don't know what the numbers mean then. Other
What do you
than
mean?
we get a lot of people looking at us, but what does it really mean? How are we doing with respect to other areas that we compete with? How have we done year over year? I'd just like to see numbers like that so we can get a true comparison in terms of what we've done and where we're going. So Joanne, we'll just put that on the list also, if you don't mind.
I will
We'll be able to
update
get
that.
that also before the next committee meeting.
Yes, Andrea. Hold on, Andrea. Andrea Hogan, you're on mute. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the sake of efficiency in these meetings, can I ask the chairman whether it would be appropriate to ask supervisors that have questions that need definitive answers like these, if they try to forward them to Joanne or yourself prior to the meeting so that she has the opportunity to have the answers?
Absolutely. We got this over the weekend or before last week. We got this information. So if you have a specific, send it along to me and I'll make sure we get it on the agenda so we have an answer for you so that we can, I don't want to belabor this meeting. We have people on that we're paying to give us an update on their, what they're going to propose. So we'll just move on with the slides, but yes, we'll take care of it. Thank you. Go ahead, Joanne.
The next slide is tax collections. Just a quick look back from 2016 to 2020. Noting in 2020, collections will continue to come in until March 31, and we are just over $4 million at this point.
That's great. Good.
Okay, so then I would move into my objectives for the coming year. There was a single sheet in your packet that I would review. We would like to keep our area safe and responsibly attract visitors to the area. I think that goes without saying. We did a pretty good job of that over the course of last summer, and we will continue moving forward into 2021. That's certainly sensible. We'd like to highlight attractions throughout all of the county. We know that we have partners in North Creek and North Warren and a little gem in Glens Falls, and we need to collaborate with all of our communities around the county. And we'll also be collaborating and coordinating with our community partners. I am on the weekly hospitality and communications call. So just moving ahead into looking ahead at 2021, those are the things that we would strive to work toward. A couple of our major projects, we do have a new website review coming up. The RFP should go out shortly. We've had the current website for about 5 years. We just need to keep, technology changes all of the time. So we just launched a new website for our Visit Adirondacks. So I've had a chance to see what new things are out there. It'll probably be another month or so that I'll come back to the committee and bring back proposals for a new website vendor. Our media purchasing contract, we will have workshop jump in a few minutes with a presentation. Last year, as you recall, we only spent approximately $500,000. This year, hoping things are on track, we do have $1 million in that budget. That is an up to amount, as it always has been. So we'll just stay on top of what the conditions are in terms of the community and how much we want to promote, and work closely with workshop on that. I did have a slide on content and some of the tactics that we will use over the coming months. Certainly all of this we are able to change at a moment's notice, taking into consideration the things that are going on in the community. January, February, March, where we are right now, are paid search and Google AdWords. So if people are looking for us, they will find us when they're searching. We will promote a little bit the Winterfest. We also have an ice fishing challenge, which seems to have gotten some local publicity lately and some traction there, and certainly outdoor recreation. And then as we go through the additional months, last year we had a pre-4th of July. where we spent a little money ahead of time. I would imagine we would start a little bit before Memorial Day, and then leading up to 4th of July, and then post 4th of July, continue that promotion throughout the summer. We did have an excellent fall last year, so fall foliage and our social media campaigns and itineraries to get people around the county would continue. And then our typical November, December is outdoor recreation and more social media. But all of that will be fine-tuned as we work through the upcoming year and see how the health conditions are.
Okay. Are there any other questions of any of the board members right now on the presentation? Now, if you have specific questions, please email them to us and then we'll get them answered within the week. So go ahead, Andrea, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick question for Joanne. The STR, does that capture, I know you've told me this before, but I can't remember. Does that capture Airbnb? It doesn't, does it?
No.
No, it does not. So STR is the handful of major hotels, and then that short-term rentals, I have a second report on that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a quick question. And if you need to silence me, then I understand. But I do have a question about strategy. A number of months ago, I made a request to the Tourism Committee for $3,500 to do some research. During that conversation, I was told that there was a strategy being developed by the Tourism Department. Did we get an update on that?
I don't think we're prepared to go ahead. I mean, I think everybody on the committee was just sent out all those reports within the last 2 weeks. I don't know if the committee's had a chance to digest all that to make a decision going forward. Certainly, I'll put it on the priority list of next meeting, unless the committee wants to make a decision now.
I don't think it's appropriate to make a decision right now. I'm just curious where we stand with that.
Well, everybody got inundated with a lot of information. I think everybody needs to take time to read those reports and come up with their own decision-making process. One was 162 pages long. So I think everybody needs to study those reports, and then please share your concerns with me so we can get something on next agenda. Certainly we'll have a response by the February meeting. If we want it, but it's going to be a committee choice. It's not going to be my choice. It'll be a choice of the majority of the committee. If they want to do another study, we'll do another study. If they're happy, if we can glean enough information from what we already have, we'll go from there. Okay, but I'll make sure, Mike, we have you an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Are there any other questions about the overview? Sorry about the slides. We'll make sure next time. But you all should have those in your package so you can follow along. But there is some information in the back channels of these slides that would be helpful. And I think when you see the uptick of the Airbnbs, we're finally getting a handle on those. And I know most of the communities are starting to regulate the Airbnbs in their communities. And if everybody would do it throughout the county, it certainly would be easier for us. But, and the other thing is, Joanne, I'm sure somebody must know how many of the mom and pops are going out selling their properties to do something else with them. That may be something we need to look at in the future too. So, any other questions for Joanne on this item? Okay, next will be the presentation by Ad Workshop. Joanne, you want to introduce our folks?
Thank you. We have our team from Workshop with us today. Tim Kelleher is the president and owner of Workshop. Christy Myhill is our media buyer, and Amanda Bergio is our account representative. So they will walk you through plans for 2021 and a little bit about what they do and how they do it and why they do it. And they will share the screen.
Does anybody need a background on Workshop? I know they've been with us for a while. If not, we'll let them go right into their presentation. So please start. Go ahead, whoever.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I am Amanda, And as Joanne mentioned, I am the account representative on all things Warren County Tourism here at Workshop. So can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we put together a little presentation today to introduce ourselves or reintroduce ourselves. So thank you for giving us the time out of the agenda to do so. We're also going to talk about, our strategy, what tactics we're using within the advertising campaign, and speak to kind of how we're handling promoting the region during these times.
Okay.
So our first slide here is just about us. Formerly Ad Workshop, we are now Workshop. We have offices in Lake Placid and Saratoga Springs. We know this area very well. When we're not working, we're experiencing it. We like to practice what we preach. We like to make sure that whatever it is that we're promoting, we've experienced it. So we know the lakes really well. We know the mountains. We know pretty much any draw that a traveler would have to the area. We've lived it and we know how to speak to that. Just speaking to our experience, we are a full service ad agency. So although we are running media campaign for the Lake George area, we also have a search team, a web team, creative team. So kind of regardless of how we're engaged with a client, we always make sure that the experience is well-rounded. If other departments within our agency have ideas or different strategy tactics to bring to the table, we make sure that they weigh in on that. So kind of regardless of how we're working with, we always have this team of experts involved with all of our campaigns.
Amanda, we can't see your screen here.
Right. I was just going to say the same thing. I'm missing it.
Oops, I'm sorry about that.
We saw it and then it went away.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Slide number 1 came up, but that's it.
Can you guys
Now
see
we
it?
can.
Now
Yep.
we can. Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
Awesome. So this slide just speaks to our digital media buying experience. Christy, did you want to jump in on this slide?
Sure. So we at Workshop have been buying broadcast and media for over 40 years. We have long-term relationships with vendors throughout the region. We get really great rates because of the relationships with these vendors. We specialize in the buying of broadcast and TV in the Northeast region with the New York City DMA as our primary market. And other markets that we have experienced buying media in, Albany, Portland, Maine, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and all markets in New York State. Most of our team, all of our team, we're trained on every platform that we use to execute our campaigns. Facebook, Google Ads, our programmatic, retargeting, native. We continually educate ourselves to stay ahead of the game, stay ahead of the curve in the media industry. And then in 2014, we started offering programmatic buying to our clients, and we are offering that in-house. We're able to keep costs down by offering that in-house. And then another thing new for 2021, we have our own in-house programmatic platform powered by Spectrum Reach. So it's a platform that we use and we're still keeping it in-house, but we're able to pass on even more cost savings by bringing that in-house. So that's, super important is leaving these or keeping this relationship and keeping all of these strategies and buying opportunities within our agency and not farming them out to a third-party vendor to incur other fees.
Set it, forget it.
Yeah. Our tourism experience within the media department, we have handled 1,000 islands, Great Northern Catskills of Greene County. We've been on your account for 10 plus years. I Love New York and a handful of more. So we have a lot of tourism experience that helps us see what other clients are doing, as well as bringing new ideas to them, as well as you guys. Onto our team. I'm Christy. I'm the Director of Paid Media. I've been with Workshop for over 15 years. I grew up in the industry learning traditional, specifically TV advertising. And then over the past 7+ years, we've brought digital media to the forefront. So many different tactics, so many different options that we use within house. And like I stated before, the constant research and education is super important to me as well as the agency, just to keep up to speed within the media industry and keeping us ahead of the game.
Yep, and I'm Amanda, account manager, and I'm the point of contact. I kind of oversee all of the campaigns and make sure that we're staying on track with budget and timing. I've worked with a variety of other tourism clients, such as Hudson Valley Tourism, Catskills region, I Love New York. We also included some of our other team members here who are not with us today, but who are working behind the scenes on all things Lake George area. So we have Allie, who supports Christy with all things paid media. We have Sarah Cook, who is Director of Client Services. We have Tim Kelleher, who's on the call today. He is our owner and president at Workshop. Shannon Haggerty, who is account coordinator. And then we also have Tom Connors, who is with us today, original founder of Ad Workshop, and a plethora of paid tourism knowledge and experience. So he's currently serving as a media consultant for Warren County Tourism.
So in a normal world, this is what we would typically recommend for you as a client, both broadcast and cable TV, as well as the list of digital media that you see here. Connected TV, programmatic, retargeting, native advertising, video event retargeting, paid social media, TripAdvisor, and paid search marketing and remarketing. I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but the descriptions for them can be found at the end of our presentation. And if you have any questions on any of them, please forward them to Joanne, and then she can either answer them or get them to us, and we can answer questions about these specific tactics at a later time. So what we would recommend for 2021 is going to be similar to what we did last year. We'll focus on tactics that proved to be successful before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and will just continue to be successful, in the next coming years. Whether it's increased brand awareness, traffic to the website, high click-through rates, whatever that KPI is that we're looking for, those will be the tactics that we'll focus on. So for this year, broadcast and cable TV, news. I can't stress that enough. People are watching the news nonstop because of the pandemic, watching the weather, watching the news on the pandemic, just watching the news to, keep up to date on what's going on in the world. We did this before the pandemic started, where we were focusing more on just the news. And it proved to be a smart move because people were already used to watching the news. And then just with the increased viewing of the news during the pandemic, it, like I said, was an extremely smart move. Connected TV, more consumers have spent time watching connected TV due to the pandemic, and it's not going to change anytime soon. People got rid of their cable subscriptions, moved on to the digital video and connected TV that they were watching, and they're not going to go back and get those cable subscriptions again. So anything that you have streaming via an internet connection is considered connected TV. So whether it's on your smartphone, your smart TV, your tablet, whatnot, we're reaching all of your potential travelers on those devices. Google Ads, it's more of a proactive approach. You're reaching potential travelers who are already searching for ads, and you don't pay for the impressions you get. You only pay for the clicks that people are making on your ads. So instead of seeing a banner ad, shoving a banner ad in somebody's face, these ads are only going to appear when users are searching for Warren County, the Lake George area, Gore Mountain, etc. Then native advertising.
Can we stop there for 1 second?
Yeah.
This is Supervisor Bramer. I'm curious why we would do that if they're already searching for Warren County and Gore and Lake George. Wouldn't we want to target people who are searching, let's say, Lake Placid and steal them?
Yeah, so when we have a campaign, if we didn't have a campaign running, dependent on the content of the Warren County website or the Lake George area website, your ads may not appear at the top of the search results. So by running a campaign, making your ads appear at the top of the search results, more consumers are going to click your ads because they're listed number 1, 2, and 3 or whatnot, and not further down in the search results page. So you're paying for the impression to be at the top of the page, but you're not paying for it until somebody actually clicks on it. So it's kind of a free impression, but when they click on it, then you pay for it. But you have to have that campaign running in order for that to appear.
Yeah, so it gives us really good positioning real estate within Google. So you're not actually paying for the ad until someone uses it, but it's essentially showing there for no cost. Did that answer your question? Is there anything else you can elaborate on?
No, I'm wondering, I understand what you're saying about the cost to us and not until someone clicks through, but are you setting the parameters as to when our website shows up in someone's search results as near the top?
Yes. So there are specific keywords that we target, specific campaigns with specific keywords. For instance, things to do in the winter in Warren County, or things to do in the winter in Lake George, ice fishing in Lake George, Winterfest. So dependent on past search results and research that we do to see what the top keywords are, we will target the most popular ones, trying to get them to click on your ads over somebody else's, not your ads, but your website.
And so even if the search keyword was, ice fishing in the Adirondacks, that's also something that we would go for that broader demographic, that broader area that people may be searching for. But we want to make sure that they are clicking through to the Lake George website.
Okay, that was what I was just going to ask is, are you using the term Adirondack?
Yeah.
We couldn't hear you.
Is somebody asking a question? Because I can't hear them. I guess we continue on. I can't. Is somebody asking a question in the meeting room? Okay. All right, go ahead. Continue on.
Okay, so back to native advertising and video event retargeting. We did this tactic last year, and what this tactic is, just a quick explanation, is showing an ad, either a banner ad or a native ad. Well, showing the video first, and a consumer watches the video to 100%, and if they don't click on that video to the website, we then reserve those consumers with a native ad or a banner ad. So we know that the interest was there and they didn't click to your website, and then reserve them to try to get them to go to your website that second time. And then retargeting, this is just general retargeting. This is always a relevant tactic, and it gets consumers back to your website. And these are consumers or users who get to your website not just by advertising, but by organic means, by Google search results. Anybody who gets to your website, we get a pixel, and then we can retarget those users. Market allocation of this year's budget will be similar to last year, and it's pretty much based on the website analytics and where users are coming from. We did see that the majority of the users do come from New York City, which is year over year. So I have a feeling that's going to be the same this year. And then dependent on travel restrictions, some out-of-state advertising may take place in Massachusetts and Connecticut, which we've typically done before, but because of the travel restrictions due to the pandemic, we didn't do that last year. And then our seasonal campaigns. So from January through April, we're going to run this Google Ads. Like I said, it's more of a proactive approach to advertising. You only pay for the ads if someone clicks on them. May through June, we'll do the pre-4th of July advertising, pre-travel planning leading up to the 4th of July. We'll do that post-4th of July campaign, try to get your vacation in before school starts. October, we'll focus on fall foliage, and then November and December through December, we'll focus on outdoor rec and skiing. All ads should be sensitive to the pandemic, safety and health concerns. And then if the state of the pandemic changes, as the seasons change, media schedules and tactics can be changed or updated at any time. And as our partner, we're here to make any changes for you guys as fit throughout every season. And then what our partnership includes, it's the 4.25% commission. It's all time spent against media strategy, planning, negotiations, and purchases. We manage all broadcast traffic, meaning getting the TV spots to all the stations, creating and monitoring the ISKI codes for all that creative to ensure that traffic and billing is correct. We'll produce and manage all tracking codes for all digital advertising, so we can point our efforts back to some successful KPIs. We'll place all the retargeting pixels on all appropriate websites and pages. We have daily monitoring of all your digital campaigns with real-time optimizations to ensure campaign success. And then we analyze your website weekly. We see how, what the changes are week over week, and we'll, change tactics if needed. And then, excuse me, there's so much more, to be determined. Whatever it is that, an ask of Joanne, we gladly help. And I personally love the account, been on it for so long. I love the Lake George area. So we're always here for you guys.
I know Supervisor Bramer, you had a question about spend. No, I can't hear you, Claudia.
I can't either.
Mr. Chairman, it's Mike Wild.
I can
Supervisor,
hear you, Mike.
yeah, Supervisor Bramer, if you want to come into the break room, I've got my computer set up. You can ask your question here if you like. And in the meantime, Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
The slide on recommended tactics for 2021, you mentioned something about KPIs. And I know what KPIs are. They're key performance indicators. They're a measurement. And I'm wondering if you can share how you measure the success of these ad campaigns and what your KPIs are.
So it depends on what tactic we're running. So of course, click-through rates are a strong KPI for digital, almost any digital advertising, is how often are people clicking through to your website from our ads. So a high click-through rate indicates a successful campaign. Time on site, we track that. Number of pages per session. Conversions, if people are downloading anything that's on a website. We used to have a travel pack that we used to focus on getting people to sign up for. Let me see, connected TV or any type of video, completion rate is a really good indicator of a great KPI, is how often are people actually completing the video and watching it to the end. Google Ads, of course, the click-through rates on that are amazing and always above industry standards. Yeah, it really depends on what tactic you're running, but Click-through rates are the biggest indicator that an ad is actually working, because you're getting people to click on it, get to your website. And then once they're on your website, we will evaluate what they do on the site.
Thank you. It's good to understand that. Is there any opportunity to get some data from previous years in terms of what we've done with those KPIs and how?
Yep. I believe Joanne might have some of past year's reports for you, and I'm just finishing up the 2020 report. We just ran a small campaign in December, so I'm just adding that into the full summer report. So she'll have that over to her shortly. But she should have past year's reports.
So would it be possible also to request some comparison with the other Adirondack clients that you have, Lake Placid as well as the Thousand Islands? To see how those?
We have comparisons, and I can tell you if they're doing above or below what they're doing, but I don't want to tell ourselves too much, but the majority of our clients, because we're within our platforms on a daily basis, they're usually above industry standards. So I can tell you all of our clients are, they do rather well with our advertising efforts.
So if we could just clarify, we keep our individual clients in-house, separated, and even though we're working on them, you would have to request that data from them directly. It would be incorrect for us to share their data with you.
Gotcha.
There are some success stories in our RFP that Joanne could share because we did get permission from them to share that stuff, and it did give some highlights of how well their campaigns did over the past year, past couple of years.
And if I may, just one more. You mentioned comparison to industry standards. Is there any comparison to regions that we compete with?
Yes, we would have to request the data from each of those regions. We do advertise for quite a bit of them. But, I'd have to go to each region and request how successful their campaigns are. And a lot of places won't share that with like a competing agency.
Okay.
So just one more, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. So,
well, sure, Mike. Why not? We'll turn it into Mike Wild Committee. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do we measure this? As supervisors being responsible to our constituents and to our economic base, how do we measure whether we're getting the return on this that we should? And I don't know what that is, but I'm just looking to see how we might be able to measure that.
Sales tax.
Occupancy tax.
Occupancy tax.
I've always thought it was occupancy tax and the increase year over year of the sale of hotel rooms, Airbnbs, the number of the increases in website sessions year over year. It's all, mathematical figures, comparisons year over year.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for workshop? I know Claudia, you had a question about spend.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Claudia.
Okay, I went to my own room here in the county.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, can I ask a couple questions? My first question is, are you also representing clients in Essex County?
No.
No, okay. As far as the spending allocation, you talked about, and I think it's on the screen right now for me, about broadcast and cable TV versus the connected TV, Google Ads, et cetera. How are you changing that allocation to take into consideration that people are dropping cable TV?
So people are dropping cable TV, but the people that still watch television are watching the news, and you can pretty much pick up your local news stations. You can do it streaming, and you can do it if you have an antenna, and they're still airing the news to people. Like I don't have cable TV at home, but I hooked up an antenna to my TV, and I'm still able to get our local NBC, ABC, CBS news stations, and that's pretty much what I do using that is I just watch the news on those stations. Connected TV, that's where I watch all the, series and movies and whatnot. So a few years ago is when we switched to just running on news, and that just, I had stated before, it happened to be a really smart move by already being on the news, continuing to stay on the news during the past year in the pandemic. So people are watching it. The allocation of the budget from the broadcast and cable news, I would say we've dropped probably 75% of what we used to spend on your traditional TV buys, and we've moved it more into connected TV and the remaining digital tactics.
Very good.
Okay, so a 75% over prior
Over the
years.
past several years. So, for instance, Joanne had mentioned our budget, what we spent last year was around 500,000. In previous years, I would say 4+ years ago, $500,000 was the budget that I just spent on TV in a typical summer. So, and then last year, I would say I probably spent 50,000 on, I'm not even, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. But the reduction in cable and broadcast has come at such a, what do I want to say, Tom? A high rate that because the digital tactics are more trackable, more measurable and whatnot.
Yeah, we're also constantly monitoring industry trends that we get from a lot of our partners, as well as just staying up to date on kind of what's happening within the advertising space. And we are always monitoring our campaigns and shifting budget based on what's performing well, where the most eyeballs are at any given moment. So we're really flexible with our spending, and nothing is really set in stone. We like to make sure that the dollars within the county are going towards the best tactics that are performing the best. So that's kind of something that always drives our allocations, really monitoring performance and then also monitoring industry trends.
I have a question. How often do you communicate with Joanne where the trends may be changing, and do you ever have to pause and go in a different direction?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say on a weekly basis.
Weekly, good.
Yep.
That's always good to know. And if any of the committee members have questions, certainly we can ask Joanne to get us the information from a workshop.
Yep. And then just another note, we had a campaign that was going to start last year. It was a Friday afternoon. I was sitting down at a campground in North Hudson on my laptop trying to get this campaign started, waiting on approval from Joanne. I had everything set up, and then she said, stop, don't do anything. So I had only turned on one tactic, and then I had to turn it off. But I personally, like I said, love this account, and I've known Joanne and Peter for an extremely long time now. And I pretty much do anything for them.
Good. Well, it was a good presentation, and if you could actually send the slides over to Joanne sometime, and we'll distribute them to the rest of the committee if they have any other questions in the future. But I appreciate you coming in today. I'm just learning about some of this stuff, but do watch a lot of TV, and I think a lot of people are watching TV, and it seems like you got a handle on where to go with the ads, so that's good. Is there anybody else that has any questions for a workshop? No? Okay, thank you very much. We'll go right on to our next item. The advisory committee, that's on hold until we have some more time I have more time to work with you folks and see what you want to do. The date for OxyTax applications, that's still a work in progress. There is some good information that Chairman Sieber started working on with Lisa, and we will try to get that out. I don't know if that was sent out to everybody. Can somebody let me know? Did everybody get the Jocelyn, Missouri application sent to them over the weekend?
No, I just sent that to you and to Jean.
Okay.
But I can certainly.
Yeah, I would send it out to committee members. There's a lot of good information in that. And so I know we can't wait too long to get an application in place for upcoming events. So why don't you send that out, what was distributed to myself and Supervisor Merlino, and give the committee a chance to read it over. And then if we need to reconvene a working group within the next 2 weeks, we will, because I think it's very important to get this application out to people who may want to request money. So even though we're still in pause with the pandemic, I think we need to get it done, and I'll ask Rachel if she would be okay with that. Chairwoman?
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, that we picked up on the dialogue we were having earlier in the year about starting to look at changes to the application. And then of course, after getting our feet on the ground with that, looking at the scoring guidelines and then looking at the Schedule A, recognizing our wheels turn slow here, but we're going as fast, I think, as we possibly can, knowing that in hopefully 6 months or so, we're going to start seeing our tourism pick up as well and a need for these OpTax apps. I think it would be helpful to send the application, the example that was sent to us over by they sent it to Joanne and to me a few months ago from the CBB. We also did a draft of changes based on my discussion with Lisa, which was based on many discussions with members of the community, the hospitality task force group, and supervisors. And, you know, without objection, it may be helpful to send out her draft of the changes to the application as well, which looked really good, Lisa, and see if the committee members could first just kind of weigh in on it. She'll be able to tell what is what's a duplication and what isn't. But I do think it's probably got to be some hard work by the committee members first, and then of course interacting with not only the task force but tourism and CBB and moving forward on what that could look like. So I know there's a lot of little steps there, but if we could just focus on this application in the next few weeks, I think that would be a good start. And like you said, Kevin, that example was great, but I know Ryan Moore was just going to weigh in too, if you don't mind, Kevin.
Sure. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm sorry, I was just going to do a sound check. I think we fixed the microphone, just trying to make sure we didn't get all the feedback.
It's working. Thanks. What do you think, Kevin? Will that work if we do that? I know Jean and everyone's like getting up to speed as quick as they can on it, but it's important.
Rachel, if I could interject, this application, is this going to be for the people who apply at Warren County, or did you want to roll this out for all the town applications? Because I'm a little concerned about if we rolled it out to all the towns, because I think.
Yeah, why don't we go slow? Why don't we first just talk about the county events, see how it works, get the feedback, and then let's get quality here, and then we can certainly continue with that goal of having a universal application. But I think the feedback we're going to get right off the bat is going to be important to make those updates before we go, doing too many resolutions.
Right. I'd like to stick with the updating the Warren County application first, and then we can talk about, there was a lot of good stuff in what I read this weekend. So we just got to digest it and incorporate it into what we want to accomplish. So, and I think we do it, but we would get more, we would be able to put down A, B, C, D and follow a roadmap with everybody in the county. So there's some very good items in there. So thanks for the homework. I didn't expect it this weekend, but that's fine. Couldn't watch football. I had to do OxyTax application. So anyways.
Kevin, just real quick, could I ask Supervisor Merlino just his opinion on that and to weigh in as well? Because I think given his historical knowledge of it, it's really important too. And I know he's had a chance to look at it, but I just wondered your thoughts, Jean, moving forward, have the committee look at it and then have the full board. How do you want to handle it, Jean?
I think the committee should look at it. I'm looking at the one, I think Lisa put this one together.
Can't hear you, Jane.
I think Lisa put this one for the towns. If this is for the county, because I like this one here. It's shorter, it gets to the point, and I'd like to even use it in my town if I can before we get to the one, because I have to do some OpTax stuff this month. But I like this one. If you put this together, Lisa, because I'm reading this, it's shorter, it's more explanatory, and it'll make it easier for people applying for events. But the county should have one as a whole, and then maybe we could switch over down the road. That's my opinion.
Okay. Any other comments on the application project? Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
Sorry, Chairman, it's not about the application. It's something else.
Okay. Anybody else, any discussion on the applications? Okay, then we'll keep moving on that. Any other referrals? Did Mike come up, Mike Swan, Oxy tax report, or he just gave it last week? No? Okay. Supervisor Bramer, you have a question?
Thanks, Chairman.
Comment?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for answering my question earlier, giving me a phone call this morning. I appreciated that.
Okay.
And as far as the 2021 objectives on Joanne's slides, one of them says highlight attractions throughout all of Warren County. And I know that we've done some work in the past and working with the planning department, Sarah Frankenfeld, kind of getting more information about our hiking opportunities and things like that. I'm wondering if Joanne has any other specifics. I know the chairwoman has talked about some ideas for helping to promote the entire county from Glens Falls up to North Creek. Just wondering where we're going for that for 2021 to achieve our objective there.
Rachel, do you have comments on that, or Joanne?
No, I thank you, Supervisor Garrity and Supervisor Bramer, for your question. I think at this point, if Joanne could just touch a little bit on some of those ideas that we have discussed. Again, we're on day 17 of a different type of committee structure, and we're looking forward to continuing to make the regional tourism approach priority in 2021. And, Joanne, I don't know if you want to speak briefly to it, but there's some really good ideas that are floating around and discussions happening. And I'm hopeful, within the next month or so, we're going to be able to have that solidified in a way that we can present to committee.
I think part of it is ongoing dialogue with our other communities around the county. Typically, there's a Council of Chambers meeting that takes place once a month, but I think we need to go above and beyond that. I've worked with the folks in North Creek and North Warren, especially lots of outdoor recreation, and we know 2020 was all about outdoor recreation. So to promote hiking and biking and the assets of those regions has obviously become important. Glens Falls is our downtown hub, dining culture. I think that we could work closely, and I do work closely with Amy Collins, but just to reinforce that effort. And then just in talking about the connection or our relationship with the planning department, part of what we would look to in the RFP for the website development was how could we work more closely with planning and GIS integration on a newer website, because Sarah has gone to great efforts when we were working on the dining and restaurants that are open, or the snowshoe trails or snowmobiling trails. She has wonderful mapping applications that right now just happen to live on her own GIS site. But if we could incorporate that into our website, then it would get so much more traffic and eyes on all of these wonderful things that she's able to do. So I think there are a number of ways that we're looking at working with, whether it's our county partners or towns and communities around the county.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Joanne? We'll turn it over to questions on YouTube. Don, do we have any questions on YouTube?
Yes, we do, Chairman Garrity. Hold on just a sec. Let me find them. We've got a few from Mr. Frank Dietrich, specifically about the ad workshop presentation, asking, do we have any data that helps us understand when guests start to plan their vacations? I don't know who wants to take that one.
Is the ad workshop on where they could answer that?
Looks like they're still on.
Yes, this is Christy still here.
Go ahead, Christy.
So we keep on top of industry trends. We get research from TripAdvisor. We get research from, there's another platform, Smith, the Smith Travel Report. I think that's what it is.
Yes.
On when people start planning, and it is just for summer planning, it is May, June-ish, around Memorial Day, people are thinking summer. When school is still in session. So that's typically when we've started our advertising efforts, and all the digital stuff has proven to be successful, to leading us to continue to think that way, where that people are still planning early. Of course, this past year was a little different, and we didn't start until June for about 4 weeks, and we usually have, an additional 4 to 6 weeks ahead of that start. But I think what we did last year was smart, because we didn't know how the pandemic was going to work out. And then I think this year people are going to get a little bit more relaxed in their planning, and dependent on the vaccinations and how many people are going to be vaccinated, how many people or how many states are going to lift their travel restrictions. Starting earlier is going to be a better idea, I think, this year.
Okay, a second question, Don.
Mr. Dietrich also said, thank you for the report by Ad Workshop. I am not sure that I understood the other regions that Ad Workshop covers. Then he asked, can you clarify efforts with Roost, Lake Placid, or other public clients in Essex County?
Hi, so this is Tim Kelleher from Workshop. We do not work with Roost. Roost is an independent agency that stands alone. While we are based in our Lake Placid office, we do not have a working relationship. Although we have a friendly relationship with Roost, we are not currently working or supporting their efforts.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on YouTube?
Yes, Mr. Dietrich also asked, does your experience in the Thousand Islands and Catskills offer any unique insights to areas of opportunity for Warren County?
So again, may I, as much as we gather a general knowledge of tourism and a general knowledge of New York State tourism in general, each market is fairly unique, and I can't stress enough that we have to internally build a Chinese wall. I know that everyone would like to see each other's data and what they're doing. While many of the tactics are the same, there's a very unique offering from each individual region that we represent and support. And again, we treat each of them as very independent. And as you would like, your data is secure with us, and we don't share that. But as a TPA or whoever, if you would like to go to those different regions and ask them to share, you're more than welcome to do that. But if you could just respect the fact that we need to build that internal wall between what the tactics are and what works for one and what doesn't work for the other. I will say that each one of those regions is very clearly personalized and regionalized, and what works for one region does not necessarily work for the other region. So I hope I can see where you're going with that, but I hope you can respect the fact that we do need to keep that fairly independent.
Yes. Supervisor Hogan, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question for Workshop. I understand what you're saying with keeping information in its silos, but is there any way to make a comparison, a generalized comparison, without identifying specific entities?
As to, again, they're very, very disparate in their spend, two in their, like if you go to the Thousand Islands, their audience is significantly different than your audience. And their reach is significantly different of where they go for their clientele. If you go down, further south, Greene County is a different market than Lake George, and your offerings are very different. Your keywords are very different. So maybe if you can help us with what you might like to know, and then we could work with Joanne and maybe, and again, that might be a reach for, maybe I can go back and say, what would you most likely to see? What would you like to see?
Chairman,
Oh, go
Hold
ahead.
on, Andrea, you had the floor. So-
I think Supervisor Bramer can speak to that, but also Supervisor Wild. I think they both have something.
Okay, go ahead, Supervisor Bramer.
thanks. Just quick, I know some of the questions I would like to ask you, or maybe you're not the right one. Maybe we need to go out and get this, other recommendation that Supervisor Wild is talking about. But how do we make sure that we are reaching the right clients and that we're spending the right amount to do it, to break through all of the other chatter, and get to the potential visitors and get them to come here? Like, where are the markets and how much do we need to spend to actually make a difference?
So,
Tim, I can answer that to a
yeah,
little
please,
bit.
go ahead.
Yep.
And
So
we can provide that data.
research from website, the analytics from your website, you can gain a lot of information from your analytics. Who's going to your website, what their ages are, if they have kids in their household, how long they're spending on your site, where they're coming from. And another thing that we really pay attention to is travel routes. So people coming from New York City, it's a straight shoot up the interstate. People coming from Syracuse, it's a straight shoot, or Albany, it's a straight shoot across on the interstate. As well as we have a bunch of research platforms that we use. We use eMarketer for a lot of travel research, as well as the Smith & Wesson report, TripAdvisor. They offer a lot of research on that stuff, as well as if we had data from the hotels, how many people are in their party, how many, where are they coming from? That stuff would help us significantly in saying, well, we're already reaching people, we're advertising to people who are already coming here. Where are the lower hanging fruit? Where do we need to be advertising to get additional people here? We discovered that pre-pandemic, Boston was a huge market for us, and we hadn't been advertising in the Boston market for a very long time, or forever. We had never done it. So we picked that up a couple years before the pandemic started. So that stuff, it really boils down to, where do we know people are already coming from? Where do we think that we can get them to come from? Is it easy for them to get to your area? Do they have to, travel 6 hours to get there? Or do they have to travel across a border and whatnot? So paying attention to that research, always staying on top of that research, I think will help us focus on who we need to target. And we have that research for TV and broadcast too, because the stations give us that information, who's watching their news, who's watching their networks and whatnot. So we have it across the board, and I think we have a really good handle on who we're targeting and where we're targeting.
Okay, any more questions, Don, on the YouTube channel?
Yes, Mr. Dietrich had a follow-up or
Last
comment.
one, Don, last follow-up.
He said, thank you to Ad Workshop for the responses. I understand the need for privacy concerns. Only to clarify, the reason for the questions was only to understand how we should think, given that we can compete for the same guest interests. For example, we saw an increase in travel from central New York to our region in 2020. Also CT, I believe Connecticut, etc. Not trying to pry into private data, but general views of a competitive set could help us. And that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else on the committee? I'll ask that Joanne, you give a quick update on Winterfest, please. You have the information?
I do.
Yes. Go ahead.
I have an email from Christian Dutcher yesterday afternoon. There were 462 Winterfest passes have been purchased. The overwhelming majority are outside of the 128 zip code, 6% of them. 225 households are represented. We don't have a number of nights yet, but there's a lot of data that Christian has that he will be able to get back to us. Well, I think at this point, sales are fairly good. I do have an email with some other details and a spreadsheet from Christian. I don't think I can share the spreadsheet data, but I can send along this other detailed information to the committee members.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Any other questions of anybody on the committee or anybody? No? So I'll seek a motion to adjourn this meeting, and thank you all for your attention. Motion by Supervisor Raymer, second by Supervisor Hogan to adjourn the meeting. Thank you. We're adjourned.